listeners. Welcome to Plano's Political Pitbull Podcast. I am Esther.
And I'm Ruth.
And we have stuff to discuss today, but first, Ruth, have you heard of long COVID?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, for those who have not, long COVID is a terrible illness that could leave some people with debilitating disease after you have recovered from active COVID. It's sort of the gift that COVID leaves you. One of the effects of it is not regaining your sense of taste or smell. Well, our sponsor, Southwest Pain Management, can help you get over your long COVID. Dr. Groisman is the leading long COVID expert and has written a 7-volume book series on the subject. Southwest Pain Management can also take care of most chronic pain without pain pills. To find out more, please go to their website, reliefbeginshere.com. That's reliefbeginshere.com to see all that they do. So, today we are focusing solely on the City Council Place 7 debate that occurred on a very busy December 16th. I finally got a chance to watch the debate and some takeaways. So we have two very nice ladies here, okay? Colleen Aguilera Epstein, and if I heard her pronounce her name correctly, Sean Thomas, PhD. Colleen is a Republican, and Dr. Thomas is a Democrat, if you care about such things. Some people do, some people don't. And I must say, this was a very nice debate. You had it sponsored or hosted by the Plano Democrats and the Plano Citizen Coalition. The Plano Citizen Coalition is nonpartisan. Obviously, the Democrats are fairly partisan, or very partisan. So there was a series of questions that were asked, and I believe a lot of these questions were given ahead of time to the candidates because they were reading from prepared remarks. So they got an added benefit of knowing the questions before they were asked. I would have preferred them not knowing, but we can't have everything. But the audience members later on did get to ask some non-scripted questions. The moderator of the debate was one of the Plano Board of Trustees for the school district. So opening statements were typical, just a litany of their resume. I will say I learned something new about Dr. Thomas. She is the outgoing president of the Junior League, which is a non-for-profit organization that does, I guess, charitable works. And so she is the president of that. Again, another non-partisan organization who does not endorse, as she kept saying. And Colleen has served on many planning and Plano boards. She and in her church, she's done work for them as well. Just at first glance, Colleen seemed more familiar with the goings-on of the city. Obviously, when you're actually sitting on some of these boards and commissions that the city has, you get to know the inner workings a little bit, more so than somebody who's coming in from the outside. So there were a lot of questions on DART. Oh my goodness, these poor women. And, at the very same time that this debate was happening, so was the city council meeting on the DART committee, or the transportation committee, or the C4 committee, and they were giving their report. So some of their answers were no longer really useful because the report came out. So, and the committee, well, we all know the disaster that committee was. We went over that last week. So, some of the answers I will say that Colleen gave were much more policy oriented and detail oriented, whereas some of the answers that Dr. Thomas gave were what I felt was the typical politician answer. So I will give you some examples. Obviously, I'm not going to go over everything here. If you want to see the full debate, you can watch it on Facebook. I shared it to our Facebook page, Plano's Political Pitbull's Facebook page. Believe this Plano Citizens Coalition has it on their Facebook page. I will double check and see if they have YouTube, because I know not everybody has Facebook, because I think it's important for as many people to watch it for themselves. So, some of the questions on DART. Do you support Plano's election referendum on the DART question? And what should the elected officials' role be in ensuring an advisory committee? So, Ms. Epstein is for the DART election. She's on record as that. She also said that we should get out of DART. She said, we've been at this for 6 years, trying to renegotiate our deal with them. And sometimes when, as she put it, when you're in a bad relationship, the only thing you can do is leave it. On the flip side, Dr. Thomas thinks that we should not leave DART. And she also feels that there could go back to the negotiating table and talk more. Dr. Thomas is got her PhD in human resources, and she's all about relationship building and bringing everybody together, which is great.
In theory.
In theory, yes, but been there, done that, hasn't exactly worked, but she can try. I'm sure the city could use her as an outside negotiator if she wants. She could do it as a volunteer. Don't have to hire her for it. She supports mass transit. She says it has to be reliable, accessible, all the important buzzwords. There was talk about bonds. Miss Epstein wants a committee that is a bond accountable committee to report back to council to make sure all the bonds are being spent, I guess, wisely, and how the funds are being spent. Now, interestingly enough, you can only spend bond money on what you ask the citizens to approve. So you can't ask the citizens to pass let's say, hypothetically, a $15 million bond to fix parks, and the city can't go and decide, well, you know what, we're not going to use it for parks, we're going to use it on roads. They can't do that. All right? That is totally against the law. So the committee can make sure that the funds aren't being wasted on, maybe instead of getting Mexican rock, they get a cheaper rock, things of that nature. Dr. Thomas, and this is where it shows her lack of experience with the city. She said she wants to read every budget and bond meeting.
What does that mean?
Hold on, I'm getting there. And ask the right questions about cost controls are built in early. So,
what does that mean?
Yeah, this is where I think her lack of knowledge came out. Read every budget. Well, you better be reading every budget because budget season happens every year. And bond meetings, I'm not sure if she's talking about the appropriations committee, which works out what they're going to ask to spend bond money on. But once that happens, there's that's it. There's no bond meeting. The only meeting is the city council on the consent agenda deciding to actually spend the money and agreeing to take out, actually, okay, it's time to actually spend this money that the voters approved. That's it. So I'm not quite sure what she's thinking in her head, how this works. It's pretty straightforward. Actually, any money that's spent, a lot of it is on the consent agenda, which is never debated. And items are rarely pulled by council, although sometimes they are. Usually it's not an item that's a bond item, though. So this was troubling. This was the troubling part. Dr. Thomas supports expanding non-property tax revenue, which, let me translate that political speak for you. She's saying, I don't want to raise your property taxes, but I'm going to raise everything else. Okay?
Yay.
Yeah. And she also said she wants to protect residents without the tax freeze. Again, saying that, okay, well, I don't want to raise your taxes. Now, again, I'd like to know if she didn't say tax rate or tax bill. So that's a question because that's a big difference. But we're going to raise all the other fees we have, which is going to make everything else expensive. Yeah, that's not good. That's a red flag, warning. So they talk about water. And again, this is where Thomas's inexperience came in. She wants to ensure public water safety. Great. And she supports city-led advisory board to review testing, protocols, and results in real-time data. So this is where Colleen had to kind of educate the audience and explain that, well, we don't control our water. We get it from the North Texas Municipal Water District, and we only control it the last leg of the way. But Miss Epstein wants a better filtration system, and she also wants to pause development because she knows that in 5 to 10 years, we're going to run out of water if we don't do something.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing goes for electricity. We are not in good shape. This was something I liked that Miss Epstein said. Somebody asked about the Envision Oak Point plan, and how the council kind of went around it a little bit by adding a 6-lane road, and some of the things that they are approving are less walkable and less people centered. And she basically said, well, walkable doesn't work in 100-degree heat. Totally, agree with that. Yeah, not gonna work. And in freezing weather, again, not gonna work. We see that we're going through two extremes now. It's 70 degrees today, and tomorrow it's going to go all the way down to 33. Hello, Texas. She said the residents want a more suburban feel. So the city actually did something it rarely ever does, and it listened to the residents. Dr. Thomas pretty much was on the other side. She wants more mixed-use developments, more walkability, more sustainability. So there's something that's different between the two ladies that we can decipher between the two. They talked about affordability, or in our case, unaffordability. Both women in the housing, both women want to diversify the housing stock, want more smaller footprint homes. And I thought this was an interesting idea that Miss Epstein had. She said that we can increase the home ownership ratio versus the rental ownership. That's the goal, by adding more single-family, smaller footprint homes. And this encourages pride, involvement, and longevity. We have an aging infrastructure that is not sufficient for the explosion, obviously, that we've had. And what she wanted to do is she wanted to make the tax freeze that the seniors get, 65 and up, that if they move into a smaller house, let's say they sell their big house, move into a smaller house, that they can take their tax freeze with them. So that whatever they're paying on their large house, now they pay in their smaller house. And obviously, if it's less, and it doesn't work if it's more. But we have seniors that are pretty much trapped in their larger homes because they can't afford to move. Because maybe they can afford the smaller house, but they can't afford the property taxes on it. So they could take that with them, and then that house, that larger house, when it's sold to a younger family, that tax goes back to normal, whatever it would be, maybe from $2,000 a year to, let's say, $10,000 a year, and the city makes a lot more money on that bigger house. I thought that was a very interesting idea. I kind of liked that. On the flip side, Dr. Thomas, she said that she wanted a multi-pronged approach. But she really didn't go into a lot of detail about what this multi-pronged approach would be. She did say she wanted diversity of housing stock, duplexes, townhomes. She said accessory dwellings units, which is like guest houses, but we don't have a lot of room for that in Plano. Unless you want to take up somebody's whole backyard. And she wants to work with nonprofits, local employers, and responsible developers. You know how I hate the public-private partnerships. Don't like that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. All right. Talked about public safety. Both women are all for it. Obviously, nobody's going to say, I'm not for public safety. Unless maybe if you're in New York City. You laugh. This is true. Okay?
That's why it's funny. It's only funny when it's true.
Yeah. Both women fully want to fund the police, and also they want to work with mental health experts and hospitals. Dr. Thomas actually works at a hospital right now. So she's got it in there. And Colleen also wants to work with church leaders. Because a lot of people, believe it or not, when they're having a crisis of a spirit, shall we say, or mental health, they'll often go to their preachers, their ministers, their rabbis, and try to seek guidance there. So that was actually a pretty good idea on her part, thinking outside the box there a little bit. They asked about parks and bonds. There was a question on the huge bond we had, $40 million in park improvements. And both women had interesting ideas on this subject. So, Colleen said that we've got lots of parks, and oh boy, do we have lots of parks. And I agree with her. She said we have enough parks. I agree. If you go on the city's website, you will see a very long list of parks and trails. I honestly don't know why in the world we would need to add another one. And she wanted to partner with youth groups like the Girl Scouts, the Eagle Scouts, and get them and teach them how to maintain parks, maybe do cleanup, stuff like that. I thought that was a very out-of-the-box thinking. Yeah. Also, they could get students who need their community involvement points, too. Thought that was a great idea. Again, Dr. Thomas said she wanted a multi-pronged approach. A little light on the multi-part. She wanted to do community partnerships and also funding. She mentioned how Toyota gave a gift of, I think it was $15 million to fund some of the parks. And actually, it reminded me that there are some parks that are public, but they're privately funded through charitable organizations or through corporate organizations. The town we used to live in before we moved here, their park was funded by a corporation. And they strategically placed certain advertisements, and it didn't look like Times Square. They were nice and subtle, but they were advertisements. They were almost like leasing space for advertisements in their park. It's quite ingenious, I will say. This was an interesting question from an audience. They were done with the scripted questions, and the audience members got to ask some questions. And one of the questions was, what challenges does Plano face that led you to run for office? And I didn't hear a lot of challenges. Dr. Thomas said that she wants to bring the right people together to the table to make decisions through a collaborative effort.
Okay.
That doesn't sound like a challenge.
I'm gonna translate that.
Okay.
Here's what I think that means.
Okay.
The question did not apply to her because the reason she's running is not because of any challenges. It's because she thinks she just wanted to. And she thinks she would be a good fit for council. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's what I think that means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, that's not a challenge. Unless she is talking about, which I don't think she is, but it could be. I'm going to guess here that maybe she thinks that council is not asking community members or the right community members to engage. Like, for example, our C4 committee.
They're not asking anything. They're acting like a bunch of
they
monarchs.
They did do this committee. Now, we all know the committee pretty much was a show pony. Of course, the committee members didn't know that.
At the time.
So she can bring the quote-unquote right people together, and she didn't tell us who the right people were either. That's a question mark in my head right there. I mean, who are the right people? But if the council doesn't give them the ability to ask questions or give them information that the committee wants or listen to the committee, then you could throw that, then this thing will work. She can bring all the people around the table she wants, but if council and the city don't listen, that goes out the window.
She didn't note that at the time, though.
Mm-hmm. Colleen agreed with that, but she added to it. She said that she enjoys collaboration and loves improving things and always has ideas for doing something better.
That also didn't answer the question.
Yeah, I think people were looking for,
what problems that there are led you to want to become a council person?
What problems do you want to fix?
They did not say at all.
No?
It's just like, I just want to be on council.
I have a list of problems right now I can roll off of. Economic development, our constant construction, the never-ending construction. The never-ending construction. Spending money we don't have. Going into massive debt. That's a challenge because I don't know how I'm going to pay that off. They didn't mention any of those things. This was a good question too. Again, kind of hard to answer. Somebody wanted to know, please describe the latest city issue you identify on council agenda that you opposed, and what did you do to attempt to affect change in this circumstance? I thought that was a fantastic question.
This should be good.
Miss Colleen, she said, DART, she actually did go up to council and give them what she thought was a solution on the debt. She said there was a zoning issue that she was against, turning a large tract of land into apartments. So I thought that was a good thing. And she's actually, in the past, I know because when you watch council meetings and you see the same faces pop up, you recognize people. Hell, you're back. She has spoken in the past to council on a variety of issues, especially with zoning changes. She's outspoken about that, and so she's done that. Now, Thomas, being a little new to this process, She said that she opposed the referendum on DART, and she thinks that the city should keep negotiating and needed to figure out what is in the best interest of its citizens. I don't know what she's actually done. She should, because I've never seen her speak to council, to my memory, on an issue. Maybe she's written in. Could be.
So I know this was like before the committee and like all their decision that they made and all that. But aside from that, there's only so much negotiation you can do if the other party doesn't want to negotiate.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand, and you expressed it quite a bit in previous episode, that they don't seem to have a good solution if we do get rid of DART at all. They don't seem to have a good replacement yet planned out.
I can see.
And so it's kind of like a catch-22. What do you do?
Yeah. There could be stuff going on behind the scenes, obviously, that we don't know about. They're working on a plan, but I am still concerned. And a lot of people are concerned, and a lot of people in the audience were concerned. One gentleman asked, look, I take DART. How am I supposed to get to work?
But her solution, I don't think would work because you're beating a dead horse at this point.
Yeah.
If the other party doesn't want to negotiate, if they're not bringing anything to the table, if they're not being open to anything, there's not much you can do.
Yeah. And that's where we are. In Plano's defense, and Lord knows they need them sometimes. They need a defense sometimes. It has tried to work with DART for 6 years, 6.5 years almost. DART doesn't have to do anything. They have zero incentive. I've said this before. They have zero incentive to be a good business manager. Or company, because they're not one. No matter what they do, no matter what they give Plano or don't, they get that sales tax money every single year, quarter, however it's dealt out. So they could be terrific and give great service, or they could be horrible and miserable and lousy and give terrible service. The penny that they get still comes in every time. Horrible way to fund anything, but that's what we have.
She said she works in human resources. Shouldn't she know this? That if the other party is not being receptive in any sort of way, there's only so much you can do.
Again, I think this shows the newness that she has, because she hasn't obviously been watching this saga for 6 years. She hasn't.
I'm not just talking about this situation. I'm talking about in any situation.
Yes. I mean, in any mediation, you've got to have one party give up something and another party give up something else. That's what negotiating is. So that both people can come away happy. But Plano keeps forking over its penny in sales tax. DART doesn't seem to do anything. Somebody brought up, what challenges will Plano face if the Stars move to the Willow Bend Mall? See, now I would have said traffic nightmare every weekend. But they didn't say that. I would have said drunk driving. I would have said, a bunch of other things. But
Noise,
rowdiness. God, stay away from that whole area. Won't be able to go south of West Plano Parkway on the west side. So Dr. Thomas said how to get people from point A to point B. Again, I guess the traffic scenario. And Ms. Colleen had a solution. Her solution was that the Dallas Stars should pay for shuttles to get their people to the stadium and back. So somebody asked about the time they can devote. Colleen is retired. She's an empty nester. She can devote full time. Dr. Thomas, also an empty nester, but she has a full-time job. Oh, something to consider and think about. Of course, lots of people have full-time jobs, and they manage to balance it all. I'm not saying that that's a negative or a positive. I'm just saying it is what it is. Again, a lot of the audience was very concerned about DART. Very concerned about DART. Like I said, one guy stood up and said, how am I going to get to work? And Colleen said that for 2 months before the vote, there is going to be a trial transportation plan that the city is planning on doing. She quoted the city, and she said that, they're not going to leave us stranded. I hope not. I don't know. She has more faith than I do. Very interesting thing that somebody asked. What is the percentage of ridership for full capacity for DART? And what are we paying per person? Now, I don't know what the percentage of capacity is for DART. Like, what is full capacity? That I don't know. I have not seen that number anywhere, but I know what it is per person we're paying. $65 a trip per person. And I know that only about 1,000 Plano residents actually use mass transit. Neither one of them had the number off the top of their heads, which I can't blame them. That's not something I would think most people would know. This was a very bold and brave thing that I think Miss Epstein said. I was kind of shocked. Somebody asked about the people coming from another city, like Richardson or Dallas, going into Plano. And Colleen said, we're not going to leave our citizens high and dry. But she said that if someone wants to come into our city, it is up to them to find transportation to do it. I thought that was a very honest thing to say. And the crowd went, like half of the room, I think maybe the side of the Democrats were on, all went, oh no. They were like, oh my God. I was like, wow. That is, most politicians would say, oh, don't worry about it. Plano's got a plan. They will go pick people up at the furthest point they can and then take them into the city, or we'll figure out a way. We're not going to. No, she went, if you're coming into a city that doesn't have interconnected mass transit, it's up to you to find a way to get here. Wow. I was like, okay, she's being honest.
Honest to a fault.
Now, I'm sure that Plano does have, and they've said they have a plan for that. The last stop, let's see, would be Richardson City Line. They'll have microtransit or somebody pick them up and take them into Plano. But yeah, it was like, no, you're responsible. which I understand on a philosophical level. Yeah, you are.
But
The city,
by getting rid of Dart, you're taking away what these people had, and so you are leaving them stranded. Because let's say you live in Plano, but you work in Dallas, and you take Dart to get to Dallas. What do you do? Or the other way around.
I think this was the other way around.
Okay,
like
so
she's saying she would take our citizens out to, let's say, if they're riding the train, she would have the microtransit take them to the Richardson station by UTD, and then, or City Line, I should say, City Line, which I think is the closest to us. That's not in us. And so she would have a microtransit take them to, let's say, the City Line train station. And then from there, they can go into Dallas. But what about the opposite? I mean, that's quite bold. I would say that. You can tell she's being honest, because a politician, a liar, would not ever say that.
Sure, she's being honest, but she's also wrong.
From a philosophical perspective, I don't think she's wrong. We're
not talking about philosophical here. We're talking about reality.
We talk about these kinds of things. We've talked about, is it a city's responsibility to provide your transportation for you? And both of us said, no, it's not. Now,
except that's the world we live in.
That's the world we live in now, though. You know, we're not going to go back. We're not going to go back 100 years, or even, I should say, less than that. We're not going to go back to the 1960s before Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Urban Transportation Act. We're not doing that. That's not happening.
The thing is, though, the reason I'm like, we're not talking about philosophical is because the reason we're not talking about philosophical right now is because what is she running for? She's running for a position on council, which has the power to decide all this stuff. And so we need to be talking realistic.
Yeah. I mean, we do have lots of people who come into Plano from Dallas to work in Plano. We do have that. We also have people that come in from the north into Plano. So we get hit by traffic both directions. Anyone who's ever been on the Dallas North Tollway and rush hour knows that.
So I appreciate the honesty. But you're still wrong.
I appreciate the honesty too. And obviously Dr. Thomas doesn't want to leave Dart. She doesn't seem to be saying what she's going to do after that fact if we do leave Dart. I mean, all she says is it's got to be reliable, it's got to be cost effective, and...
Well, I think she's stuck on the fact that she doesn't want to leave Dart. She's probably just thinking about negotiating.
Yeah.
So she's not thinking about, well, what if we do leave?
Yeah. And she was not obviously in the room or paying attention or watching because she was at the debate. She wasn't watching what was going on in the city council chamber. So we have to remember that when these two ladies actually are sworn in, all of this will be pretty much settled, because the city council is going to meet at the end of January to actually pick a microtransit business.
So why is everyone talking about Dart when they don't have when they won't have the power to change anything?
Well,
it's gonna be done.
It should be done, because the rollout, the start date for, I think the plan to start is sometime in February or March. Now they will be on council. They should be anyway, depending on when they get sworn in. I would think it would be the next council meeting after the election that they're going to get sworn in. Now they could be there, but remember, they're one vote. And
the council was pretty unanimous.
Yeah. And remember what I had said. What am I looking for? I am looking for somebody to tell them no. I do not get the feeling that Dr. Thomas is going to be the person to tell them no.
Why? She wants to stay in Dart.
No, I am not about this particular issue. I think that she's all about, let's come together and kumbaya-ing and, happy and, let's all work together. And
doesn't like conflict, is what you're saying?
I don't know about that. But at the end of the day, she's going to have to make a decision. She's going to have to make a vote. And from all the answers that she gave, I'm not getting the feeling that she is going to be any different from what we already have up there. You know what was not asked?
What?
Economic development. Not a single question on it.
I'm too focused on Dart for some reason.
Unless you count the stars question on Willow Bend. But they were focusing on how are we going to get all these people to the giant arena, not who's paying for it. That would have been my thing. But
well, you're always thinking about money.
Yes. They talked about the demolition of 4 schools. And Colleen was very, this was bad. I found out something that really struck me hard. Apparently, they're already starting to tear down the schools. They are not leaving the schools up.
Didn't we already know that?
I thought that they were waiting to sell it to Plano, and then they were going to tear it down. No, in Carpenter, they're already starting the demolition. And I heard another one, they're starting the demolition too. So I was like, oh, geez, that's horrible. What a horrible mistake they're making. I said, don't tear down the schools.
Yeah, they didn't listen.
Yeah. Well, apparently Miss Colleen was on the same wavelength as me, because she said they should not have turned down the schools. She said they should have leased it out to repurposed it for something else, leased it to another school, leased it for another purpose, to some kind of a business and stuff, so that it's not wasted. Because even she said, does the school district think that we're never going to have growth in our student population ever again?
No, our student population is just going to keep going down and down and down. Pendulums never swing back and forth.
There is not much land left. And by the time the population goes up, there'll be nowhere for these schools to be built.
Good job, guys.
Yeah. Great. Dr. Thomas kind of took a different approach to this. She said that basically the buildings are torn down. And she actually worked at Carpenter, and she said that building was in bad shape when she worked there. In her words, she said, Carpenter was falling apart when I worked there.
So that means you tear it down?
Right. In her mind, I guess so. She said she would rather have someone we don't know. She would rather have someone come in we know than someone come in we don't know, and do something with the building, and we have no say in the matter.
I don't get it.
Okay. So what she's saying is that The buildings are going to be sold. They're going to be torn down. What she's saying is she'd rather have the city do something with them because she knows the city. Instead of some unknown developer come in and do something with that land that she has or the council has no say over.
Oh. The devil you know is the better than the devil you don't.
Right. Exactly. More questions about DART. DART was a hot topic. I mean, very hot topic. And then closing statements, which was your typical closing statements. And that was about it. I have to say, if I were to evaluate the two ladies, who are both lovely ladies, I think that Dr. Thomas is going to be like what we have now, up there.
Just too similar.
Yeah, I just think she's too similar. Very nice woman, very intelligent woman, very well spoken. But she is going to be a carbon copy of what we already got. Colleen is definitely not going to be like everybody else is. I think if you want somebody who is going to say no, going to bring different ideas to the table.
Might be a bit controversial.
Could be a bit controversial, but hey, controversial is not necessarily a bad thing. But
some interest to the room.
Yes. There'll be some interest. She thinks out of the box. She likes to solve problems. She said she listens. She likes to think differently. I think that she would be somebody who's not a carbon copy of what we already have. And is not just going to take staff at their word, depending on the subject. She did say that, she did quote Plano. She said, Plano staff told me that, Plano told us that they're going to have a plan. I'm like, okay, that's great. But what if they don't? So that's my take on it. Like I said, go watch for yourself. They're both lovely women, and you decide. Election day is January 31st, so we only got about a month away. Early voting starts in the middle of January. And please, 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 please do your homework, people, okay? Go to these ladies' websites. They both have websites. Go to their websites. Watch the debate. Go on their Facebook pages. See if you can contact them with any questions you have. I would definitely want to ask them about economic development. What's their stance on that? I would want to ask them, what economists do they take after, or what economist do they model their economic philosophy after? Are they a Keynesian? Are they a Milton Friedman, a Thomas Sowell?
Not everyone thinks about economists, right?
Yes, I know that, but the one thing I like about local government is social issues have no say in the matter, okay? They cannot do anything on gay marriage. They can't do anything on abortion. They can't do anything on any social issue. It's all about the economics. It's all about how are we going to pay for water? How are we going to get this road fixed? How are we going to pay our police, our fire? Where are we going to get the money to do this? It's all about the money and the economics of it. And you better know what your economic philosophy is. Are you a Marxist? Are you an Adam Smith? That's very important. Do you believe in public-private partnerships like Mussolini did? If you do, I am not voting for you. Sorry. We have a visitor. We have another doggy with us today. We're dog sitting. This is a different doggy. And I think she's getting restless here.
Yeah, she's walking around a lot.
So if you're hearing click, clap, that's our little doggy
Little
here.
big.
Well, yeah, well, this is a bigger one than the last one we had. All right. And speaking of dogs,
Great segue.
our very important dog of the week.
Don't lick the paper. Okay, so Stella is a friendly dog who's about 3 years of age. She is house trained and very sweet, like you are. Stella is good with children, like you, and quite active, so maybe best around older children. She's also good with other dogs, like you are. Stop! You can't talk.
All right. Okay, Lola. That's enough.
Thank you.
No more kisses. Well, if you would like to find out more about Miss Stella, the pit bull, please go to our website, www.plainospoliticalpitbull.com, to find out more about her. Remember to click on the link, Pit Bulls for Adoption. That is all the time we have for today, folks. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. We wish everyone a happy and blessed new year. This is Esther.
And this is Ruth.
For Plano's Political Pitbull, signing off.